Let's go through a couple of people who are running for president. This is Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's running for the Republican nomination. He was the first guy to jump in against Trump. He is the Marianne Williamson of the right now. He is an entrepreneur, which I would stack. I mean, I would go with entrepreneur, but I understand what I'm saying. He has this podcast where he brings on a lot of right-wingers and goes, fascinating. And it's some of the most boring shit I have seen in the political podcast arena. But this is him on the Mess's podcast talking. He wants to revive American exceptionalism. I would love to see a debate between him and Marianne. It would just be all popcorn all the time. Let's go.
Happy to welcome back to the podcast a great guy, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy. The difference from when he came on last time, he is now running for president of the United States.
I have that apparently written on this piece of paper, and now that he's running, I decided to dress up for the interview.
He's a best-selling author. He's host of the Vivek Show podcast,
which is really, really interesting. Really interesting. It's really like if you watched it, you won't have insomnia anymore. That's all I can say.
And his website, Vivek, Vivek 2024.com.
I understand why you'd have to write all that down, because who can't remember that?
Vivek, you have jumped into this presidential fray. I got to say it was perhaps unexpected, certainly an audacious move. And it seems like you're building a theme or an argument around American exceptionalism. Am I right about that?
And how does that differentiate you from Make America Great Again, America First? And how is it looking to the past too much, or?
Do you think that American exceptionalism has been eroding or declining, and what are the causes of that?
Yeah, I think American exceptionalism has become a
Bless you. Somebody hit his button for him. It must be nice, Dinesh. Must be nice to have somebody who can hit your mute button when you sneeze and turn it back on. Yeah.
Letter word in our culture. And
wait, what?
Yeah, I think American exceptionalism has become a four-letter word in our culture.
It's two words with a lot of letters in them, but to make them, which four did they get it down to? You're going to have to keep at least one of the E's. The A has to be, I mean, goddamn, it's America. American exceptionalism has become a four-letter word. You're off to a good start.
And I think, Dinesh, it's because we're in the middle of this national identity crisis where faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared.
They have? Is this guy saying we're not working hard enough? That the American people aren't working hard enough? That we don't care about our families. We don't work hard. I mean, how do you read this as anything but an accusation? Fuck you.
And I can tell you my generation, I'm a millennial. I'm the first millennial candidate to ever run as a Republican for president.
And you're doing great, man. You're a great example of the intellectual capacity of the millennial generation. I think it's great that you followed Marianne's advice and pretended that the last 1,000 years didn't happen while still using all of its advances. It's terrific.
Really, my generation, but every generation in this country is so hungry for purpose and meaning.
Yeah, that's not what politicians are for. That your functioning government is not about our own personal raison d'etre. As a matter of fact, and from a Republican standpoint, it used to be about laissez-faire, do your thing, and the government just make sure that the plane you're in doesn't crash.
And when the things that used to satisfy our purpose are gone, from faith to belief in country, we then allow wokeism and victimhood and climatism and COVIDism.
Climatism and COVIDism. Why? I mean, at this point, we're just tacking ism onto the end. Trafficism. All these people who want people to want the roads to be paved. Infrastructureism is destroying the budget. It's just social securityism is this belief that the government should take care of you when you're too old to work or something. I don't know, lazy. What happened to your family? Why aren't they picking up the slack?
To fill the void, now transgenderism.
Yeah, that's and the Biden administration is clearly making their foreign policy decisions on transgenderism.
It's not an accident. It's not.
No, it's a plot. Obviously, it's the CIA, deep state, Illuminati establishment of lizard people who are making us all sever our penises and become, I guess, asexually reproducing worms or something. I don't know. I've only watched one episode of the Last of Us. I'm not far enough along to follow this. Is this canon?
A coincidence that we see the rise of these secular religions, these cults in America at the same time.
Look, I love Dinesh trying to interesting point face.
It's because we're starved for purpose and meaning. And I think that what the next U.S. president can do, what the conservative movement can do, is to fill that vacuum of purpose with a vision of what it means to be American. And I'm all in for the America First agenda, but to put America first, we need to rediscover what America is.
Yeah, you guys don't know. You seem to think it's about people being able to be who they are and everybody else having to let them be who they are or something. I don't know, some sort of ism.
And that's the movement that I'm leading, hopefully all the way through leading in the White House and doing to this country what Reagan did in the 1980s.
Doubling the national debt and trading arms with the Iranians.
Leading our country out of the last national identity crisis. That's what I want to do to lead our country out of this one.
Vivek, if I flash back a generation to when I was coming of age in American politics, it appeared like
before his felony conviction, just for the record.
The left's critique of American exceptionalism was that American exceptionalism did not apply to everybody, so that there was a ladder of opportunity, but blacks in the South particularly were excluded. And so the original project appeared to be, let's make sure that these principles are applied more ecumenically, more...
Yes, through diversity, equity, and inclusion, which of course conservatives are trying to curb stomp.
Universally, everybody has a chance.
Right.
But now it seems like there is an attack on the principles themselves, and wokeism, as you just suggested a moment ago, is all...
Yeah, but not just by itself. Obviously, COVIDism, transgenderism, the Tool album Schism, post-industrialism, neoliberalism-isms, which are, obviously, I don't know. I have my neoliberal quotes book around here somewhere. It's tiny, it's red. Where is it?
Almost a rival and alternative ideology unto itself. What do you think that those people want, and why is it bad?
Yeah, tell us what's awful.
Yeah, so it's really interesting you point that out, Dinesh.
It totally is. It isn't, but yeah, go ahead. Go with it.
Back then, it was a debate about, do we have equality of opportunity? And I think that's a fair debate to have. America has never been perfect. Perfection doesn't exist on God's green earth, but it is about the pursuit of perfection. But that's a reasonable debate to have. What's happening today is something different altogether. It's that when the civil rights movements actually achieved their own promised land, today there is equality before the law based on race or gender. And say what you will, people are free to marry who they want, if they want, when they...
Yeah, except you are running to head the party that wants to roll that back. Women used to have the right to bodily autonomy. You're trying to drive that back too. And so you can't, on the one hand, go, hey, we finally achieved those things because of the efforts of the Democratic Party and Democratic voters almost exclusively. Occasional crossovers, by the way, by Republicans who are afraid of getting kicked out of office for being too bigoted at the time. Now they're not afraid at fucking all, it appears. But at this point, you're like, well, yeah, the Democrats solved a lot of these problems, and now you're running to be the presidential candidate for a party that is hell-bent on rolling those things back to before those solutions came in.
It's precisely when that movement reached the promised land, its own promised land.
I didn't realize we'd hit the promised land. I have a dream today that one day two assholes would talk themselves into a corner from the set of their own podcasts, and no one has to watch it except for Housebox pointing it out.
That it then went berserk. That it actually then became most vehement about systemic racism or transgender ideology right when its own goals were achieved.
Okay, this, by the way, where he is pretending, this is kind of an important moment. This is where this is a thought form across all of conservatism right now. That it was a mistake to allow the civil rights movement, and it was a mistake to allow women to vote. Rush Limbaugh literally said it. Because what's happening now is what they warned us about. If you let the blacks live anywhere they want, if you let women vote, if you let, these different racial groups have a say in what we're doing, they're going to destroy the country from within because they're basically, at best, pets. That was a thought back then. That was the warning by the most awful of the awful before suffrage, before the civil rights movement. And the argument all over right-wing Telegram, right-wing QAnon world, and certainly everywhere this asshole yammers with some of his podcast guests, is that I think we just shouldn't have, to be completely frank, we shouldn't have let that shit happen. It was why we let it happen. They were like, that's why they're going nuts, because they were always going to go nuts. You can't give these people all the right to do this stuff because they're going to run rampant. You know what I mean? That's why we had to keep them in, you got to keep them down, because the minute they think they've got a whiff of it, they're going to go for your throat, man.
So that reveals what
I'm not kidding. This is a real thought. And he's trying to, with his, I guess, black on black suit jacket, Henley shirt, that he's trying to do this, tech billionaire version of that storyline.
What's going on? What's going on is actually that when faith, patriotism, and hard work disappeared.
And by the way, fuck you. I like the idea that we suddenly became listen to this dude. Listen to what he's telling you, because he's reflecting what he thinks is a winning message. And Dinesh is all in on this. He may not vote for him. He may not think he's the guy, but they're in on this message, which is you are where you are right now because you're fucking lazy. It's the same bullshit that Marianne believes, that you are where you are because you bought into, democracy as a function. That you think you can solve these things generationally and incrementally, and it's not. We got to burn the whole fucking thing down. And the only difference between what she's saying and what he's saying is that she wants to burn it back down till we're, I guess, in the 1800s, and this guy will settle for the 1940s.
People then latched on to civil rights as their own hook for giving themselves a sense of purpose and direction in.
Yes, pushing back on racism, sexism, and anti-gay rhetoric, as the idea that some people would actually think that that's a good use of their time. Madness, I tell you, madness.
Life. But when that struggle, that so-called struggle, was itself.
So-called struggle. Excuse me?
In life. But when that struggle, that so-called struggle, was itself achieved in its own goals, in delivering itself from that struggle.
So-called struggle. Get the fuck out of here. Really? All right. All this asshole is doing is printing clips of himself, guaranteeing that he will never be president, but that this will, I guess, be ways he sells books. Blacks, women, and also dentists, right? I'm for John Stamosism. The chat is having a good time with this nonsense. By the way, you're watching House Sparks Mega Worldwide, and I love you for it. I like most of these dickheads. I can only take a slice of this pie